All right, welcome to Fundraise with Elsa, where we dive deep into the world of venture capital and fundraising. I'm Elsa Mo, venture partner at Orion Opportunity Fund, and here to share insider strategies to help founders raise their first institutional funding. In each episode, we're going to break down the mindset and the tactics needed to secure the funding that you need to scale. If you're gearing up for your next fund, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Welcome, Julia, the founder of Wayo, who very impressively has already raised venture.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, do you want to start with a quick intro about your background, how you came about to start Wayo? I would love to dive more into AI as well.
Yeah, of course. So before starting Wayo, actually, I was chief of staff at Alibaba in New York at the time. So that's kind of what brought me into global supply chain. And during a time, that's when I realized how inefficient it is right now to source from global factories. A lot of times it's still super manual. It's asking for, a quote, waiting for days, back and forth email thread. There's no tool really streamlining this whole process. So we're building Wayo, which is now using AI to streamline getting extraordinary merch directly from overseas factories, and you get the best prices that you would expect going to directly on Alibaba, but the checkout experience as seamless as almost like D2C shopping. And we have AI tools where you can plug in your website, give you recommendation, instant merch mockups with your logo and different kind of brand elements, auto quotation, self-checkout, and all that. So essentially, we're connecting the world to the world's best manufacturers and enable small businesses or startups to make any kind of custom merch directly.
I can attest to Julia's capability and Wayo's team and product because I have a lifestyle business. It's an e-commerce pet memorial business, and we rely very heavily on Wayo and your team there to source and also to arrange shipments at really incredible rates. And just the service has been great. So I'm really excited for the launch of your product. So you're saying you've been building the product, I think, in the last like 1 or 2 years, and you're launching next week.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. We've been building, I would say, officially a year for the AI tech platform, but I've been in this industry and running this business for the past like 2, 3 years. And it was actually starting with, my e-commerce brand Multitasky, where I have my own e-commerce brand, which is more like a lifestyle business, selling all kinds of like fun, functional tech gadgets, home office supplies. As you can see in my background, if you can see in a video, all the products that we sell is in the back. But yeah, so that was kind of how it started, and then leading more into helping my other friends who are startup brand founders source directly, brands like Fetcher, and then that kind of rolled into like a initial product sourcing agency, and ultimately that's when we realized that here's all the inefficiencies, and we decided to raise venture capital and then build a platform to address all the pain points.
Yeah, I really love this progression because I love it when I see this like go to sauce because you know the pain points very well as a brand owner, and you know that others also have this pain point, and you're best positioned to solve this problem with this agency experience as well. So why don't you share a little bit more about fundraising? When did you start thinking about raising institutional capital? Who did you speak to? How were those conversations?
Yeah, so we raised last summer. So I think May was when we had really the idea, put together a pitch deck, and then just like started outreaching to investors. We got pretty lucky. I think we just started like I literally started cold outreaching to people that I found. I think I used like VC Sheet to like basically filter all the different kinds of funds, like seed funds, and then I looked them up and on in LinkedIn, and then basically found their email, and then I outreached to some. We ended up raising from Neo, which is like a early stage fund. They also have an accelerator, which is incredible, but we just directly joined as a portfolio company. And they were the first few funds that we spoke with. We got very lucky there, and just kind of went with Neo because we really loved the team. But I would say in the end, we still probably talked to like dozens, if not like hundreds of investors for that round, even after we already got the term sheet, just like, trying to other options there are, also get to know more investors. And then we started more with cold, and then we also then got like a bunch of warm intros through other founder friends. I think ultimately, I would still recommend if you can get intros, should probably get warm intro because I think actually when I raised our Neo, the founder of Neo is Ali, and he was telling me actually we have so many mutual friends on LinkedIn. We probably should have asked for a warm intro, and he really don't recommend people like doing code outreach. I mean, it worked out for us, but I think generally it seems like best practice is still like, getting more like referrals and warm intros if you can.
Yeah, I always tell founders who ask me like to do both, like to prioritize warm intros, or at least like if you see on LinkedIn that you're like 1 or 2 degrees away, or if you went to the same university, worked at the same company, and in your example, that's always a good way to start. And then obviously supplement that effort with like some sort of CRM or just like more mass email outreach. So you
Yeah.
mentioned VC Sheet is a tool that you used.
Yes. I used VC Sheet. I also used Folk, which is actually also a neo-backed startup. It's like a LinkedIn Chrome extension where you can save different kind of like profiles. I find it really helpful for warm outreach. People I already know. I basically use it to categorize my LinkedIn. I save them, and then I have a CRM token, and I would reach out to investors there.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear a bit more about the round. If you're able to share, like, how much did you raise? What were some of your considerations? How did you talk to VCs about your valuation and your traction at the time? Because you were super early, right?
Yeah, yeah. We ended up raising a pretty big pre-seed round because that's like when we technically just had an idea. We didn't have any product yet. We're just about to launch a platform actually like next week, and now it's already November 2024. But at the time, I guess we raised like a larger pre-seed slash like seed. We did about 2.5 million. It's on a safe, so we had a valuation cap. When we had the conversation with Neo, they just set the cap directly for us, and we find it like a pretty good number. So we kind of just like went with it. But I think like there have been cases where I heard like founders would negotiate the cap, and maybe you get a couple other VCs like valuation or whatever the safe cap, and then you kind of negotiate between the different ventures. I've heard that too. We just happened to have a pretty good offer right away, and then we just like took it directly.
Hmm. So when you already got that cap offer, did you go about doing some research or benchmarking to understand like how is this compared to other pre-seed companies?
Yes. I think we realized that it's actually quite high, higher than our expectations, so we just took it. But
Oh, that.
yeah, we kind of already did quite a lot of like benchmarking. We asked a lot of other tech founders. So I would say like probably pre-seed typically the cap is like set a lot lower than a seed, but we ended up raising a pre-seed but like getting a higher seed cap, so we kind of just like went with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so incredible, especially in this environment where, founders always complain to me how difficult VC perspective, it's like the same. It's harder to find good deals, and we're like very conservative about where we invest, and we're taking months for diligence. So it must be frustrating for founders, and it's great that it worked out the way it did for you. And so, what would you say is a good place if others want to look at benchmarking data, but then don't have PitchBook, which is incredibly expensive?
Yeah. I also think even with PitchBook, if you're early, you won't be able to see their cap.
Hmm.
So I would say, I mean, there's like general, I think just general like sense, right? Like, for pre-seed, typically it's under 10 million. So if you're over 10 million, that's probably pretty good. I would say seed round, usually these days, what I've heard is in the teens. So if you can go like 20 and above for a seed round, that means it's really good. But obviously, I think over time, the number is changing. In 2020 back then, 20 million plus pre-seed is quite normal. If the founder have a good resume, they might be able to get a safe cap over 20 without any product. These days, I think that's going to get harder and harder. I would say probably if you're like early, it's your first round, even getting a cap like somewhere in the teens is probably like pretty decent.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I want to hear more about your team as well. I know that you have incredible experience with Alibaba and, fundraising experience. I think you helped a couple of other startups do their you also founded your own businesses. So it's like you're the CEO and co-founder, right? Of
Yeah.
Wayo. Okay, yeah. Yeah. How did you find your other co-founders?
Yeah, so my co-founder COO Mandy, her background's like more in finance. She went to Wharton, like Penn Wharton undergrad, and then did Goldman Sachs, and then was at Air Wallace Strategy. I met her through a coworker back at Disney Corporate Strategy. So I used to be like strategic planning analyst there. I built the Disney Plus financial model. That was the first job out of college. So I have a friend who also went to Penn, who was like friends with Mandy. So we got introduced like way back, and we reconnected after I started venturing into startup world. At the time, I think I was just doing consulting for a bunch of companies since I had the financial modeling background. When I first left corporate and left Alibaba, and I wasn't really sure exactly what startup to do at the time. I did a year of just like freelance consulting, built my personal brand. I was helping a bunch of companies just build financial models. Most of them were e-commerce brand kind of companies. So at the time, I think Mandy also left corporate. She was trying to figure out, her next thing. And she was like thinking about e-commerce. So we kind of reconnected. And I was like, I feel like e-commerce is so hard. I just bootstrapped one. I was like, I highly do not recommend. And that was also 2021, I think, post iOS 14. So really expensive. So I basically was like, don't do a brand, but I was like, actually, I'm thinking about, starting another business, helping other people with like sourcing custom products. So that's kind of when we started talking, and we actually started working together for almost like half a year on a part-time basis on two capacity. One is I was doing independent consulting and financial modeling for all those brands, right? And I was getting so many leads and I couldn't like finish building all the models. So Mandy was actually teaming up with me together to do a bunch of client projects, and we were both just helping with business consulting, and then I would basically do the, I guess, like the sales part, and then Mandy is like much better than me actually building the models, so she'll do all the models. And then also, since I had an idea for Wayo, and that was like way back, we didn't even have like a clear vision, but I was like, we got to build like a calculator that's very comprehensive for all of the catalog products that ultimately we want to launch, which we're actually finally launching next week, with the auto calculator and all that. So Mandy was helping me building out the initial database and of the financial model and stuff. So we already kind of worked together and realized that actually we are very complementary in our skill sets and our personality. Like I very much like the extrovert salesy kind of person, where she's like more introverted, but she like would get stuff done like super super well. And then so kind of a lot of times I'm the one who's like trying to pursue too many things at once, and then she would kind of like like kind of take me back to the ground and make me realize that you can't just like do something too crazy all the time. So I think we have a good balance there, but on the other hand, we realize that our values and vision and stuff is super aligned, and personality wise actually work super well together. We've now been working together for I don't even know, like 2-3 years. We never had a phase where it's like, oh, we had a big argument. I think we're both like very reasonable and understand each other very well. So aside from Mandy, we actually also have a tech co-founder. So Frank, his background is more in like AI. He did PhD at Berkeley. He used to work at Meta. He also had his own startup during college. So Frank is like our AI scientist. He's building all the AI related tools.
Yeah, that really looks like a dream team. So in this co-founding team, you're responsible for is it the strategy and the hiring, and then
Yeah.
Mandy's responsible for the data side of things and the product?
Yeah, I would say so. And then also my focus is also like overall the overseas supply chain since I've done e-commerce. So factory stuff, that's kind of also my wheelhouse. Sales BD, that's kind of where I focus on. Whereas Mandy is like all the product, the database, the quotation, and the day-to-day operations. Yeah. And then Frank is like overall tech and product. Oh, I forgot to mention, I actually met Frank in high school in Beijing. So I knew him for quite a while. And then we kind of also like reconnected when I was like kind of just having the idea of Wayo. And then Frank at the time, I think that was actually when ChatGPT first came out. With ChatGPT, here's all the stuff potentially we can do by applying AI into your business and how we can actually build a scalable model, and potentially a really big platform for any kind of custom product sourcing.
Yeah, I feel like ChatGPT really changed the game for so many people, whether it's like, workers at the desk trying to just be more productive, or even businesses like yours to fully integrate with AI. So it sounds like you're using ChatGPT's open source model.
That's the
Okay.
foundation. We have a couple different type products we're building. I would say one is like the AI product sourcing agent. So that's based on an open source OpenAI model. Basically, you train it to become a product sourcing agent so it can respond directly, asking all the right questions that we would need to get a custom project in. You plug in your website, we can crawl your website, get your logo, your colors, automatically generate a bunch of product recommendations and mockups, auto quote, and then you can just like place order right there. So basically making it a lot easier for people to understand how much it would cost or how the product would look like so they can just like check out directly without waiting for someone to get back to them, especially when factories are overseas. There's like time zone difference. So always it's like days of waiting for quotes. We're reducing that into like literally instant so people can just like self checkout. Like I would say that's like the main AI feature we're building. But aside from that, we also have like non-AI tech, which is just like, design studio. There's like, like some a portal to manage all of their quotes, orders, payments, shipment, tracking, etc.
Having been on the brand side, I think this is really so important to build an AI agent like this. I'm constantly talking to Tiffany at Wayo, who is kind of
Right.
in-person version of the sourcing agent, and I can
Exactly.
see how, instead of having to hire like 100 Tiffany's, you can maybe have one who's like more strategically, who has that oversight over all of these AI agents.
Yes.
Just makes the team more lean and saves up a, because a lot of this is so much grunt work. You're just like, you're on WeChat, like connecting with a
Right.
factory, connecting with a brand, and you're like this middle person that goes back and forth. It's also very tiring for the
Totally.
sourcing agent as well.
Yes, totally. That's exactly why we initially started Wayo because we keep having to hire, like people to talk to clients. Like Tiffany has been amazing, but not everyone's like Tiffany. Training someone to become like Tiffany is really, really incredibly hard because you need people who are perfectly bilingual, who's strategic, who gets it, who's good with clients, and also can talk to the factory. It's like really, really hard to hire. So it's not scalable, right? So that's why for a lot of times, if it's just simple questions such as, checking a rate. If we have the database already pre-built and we already know the products and a capability from the factory, then the AI agent can instantly tell you what's the minimum, what's the lead time, how much it would cost, right? Whereas if you hire a person, they're doing the same thing. They're going to a database, they're checking a number, and they're reverting back to you. So I think the key is not only just building out a lot of the AI tools, but also on the operational side. I spent almost a year in China last year when we first built the business, visited hundreds of factories, and we built out a massive database of all the quotes from the pre-vetted factories that we already can vouch for their quality. So when the AI agent actually come back to you with a quote and a lead time and minimum, those are all exact accurate information. And then we can feed the order directly into the factory and the factory can just go and right into production. So I think a lot of the AI, I guess, like product sourcing matching tools are like, we match you, but you still have to do the grunt work yourself by talking to the factory, which kind of defeats the purpose. I feel like people just want to, tell someone what they want and then have everything taken care of, right? So that's kind of what we're building is like tying into us like really extensive like the operation supply chain part directly with the AI and the tech tools so that we can actually provide that kind of experience where people just tell us their vision and then in a couple of weeks they actually see the custom product show up at the doorstep.
Yeah, I'm so, so excited for that. And I'm sure a lot of brands, a lot of factories are as well. So for this core agent, it sounds like the data that you're using to train is basically kind of like a database of like, okay, these are all the factories for all of these different products, and these are all the product specs. Are you using any other sort of like transcript for chatting to train?
It's really hard to do so. We've tried it, but I think on the supplier side so far, it's a little bit hard to automate just because the factories just don't even have a calculator themselves. We're literally talking to the owner, trying to understand it, and then building out a model where like we're hiring really smart like ex bankers and like consultants, literally talking to the factories to understand that to build out that model. Maybe ultimately we'll train like an AI model to automate the factory side, but I think the supplier side is a little bit tougher because aside from just information collection, we actually need to work with the factory, sample from the factory, and actually see how their service is, which that part is a little bit harder to just like scrape the data and be able to know. And I think that's also the difference between us and an Alibaba. Alibaba is like a massive database. They have all the listing on there, but you just never know. Whereas for us, it's like if we're working with this factory, we've already placed multiple orders with them. We know they're good and we've like known the owner, we visited them. So I would say as we're scaling, we probably won't scale as heavily on the supplier side. We'll probably have like, let's say the top like hundreds of like vetted factories, but we can scale the demand side a lot more if we have an AI sourcing agent, because it just makes it so much easier for them to understand the cost and then place order directly. While we kind of like, I guess like the growth for the supplier side will be a lot slower. It's a little bit more hand holding and manual work. But once we onboard actually one factory, it's like you're already getting like dozens of SKUs that's fully automated. So going for like any hat that you want to create, we already know here's a pre-vetted like top 5 factories. Each has its pros and cons depending on the quality you want, how soon you need it, what the minimum is. We use AI to match you with a factory and then send the order to the factory that best match the request, and then provide you basically the quotes from that factory instantly. Yeah.
Mm. Just as we're talking, I feel like I should introduce you to my family's factory. I mean, we
Oh yeah,
make more like handcrafted kind of like poly resin products. It's not really like consumer electronics, but it could be really cool for gifts.
that would be great. Yeah, I didn't even know that. Yeah, because we're focusing mainly on making giftable products like
Oh,
merch.
nice.
I
Yeah.
would say our biggest type of target audience are tech startups actually, who just want to, make their branded products on, different kinds of merch. But, right now, if you're ordering from Alibaba, it's too much work. If you go to custom ink or, for imprint, it's just like very basic with very limited customization and it's really expensive, right? So we're trying to bridge that and be the best of both worlds where you can get really, really affordable prices, but also at the same time, like great service and you don't have to worry about it, which I think is what startup founders need, right? You want to save
Yeah.
money and you want to save time. Yeah. So like for, custom hats, we can get it for under $5 with embroidery delivered door to door, which is probably about like 50% savings comparing to a lot of the domestic vendors.
Mhm.
And then I guess like for other giftable products, I'd love to explore, additional products. We're always adding new products to the category where people can then customize more unique items. So it's not just your basic merch, right? There are more handcrafted, like cooler items that you can also then customize and then put your brand onto them.
Yeah, that is super cool. And so the model, of course, can interpolate, but can it extrapolate? Like, let's say I want to do something that's like not recorded ever in the database.
Yes, so we can do that too. That would be like a custom request. So sourcing like a fully custom product that fully automated, we would need basically like, sourcing agent to step in and find a factory if it's a completely new category. But we do that a lot. Like we'll have people basically chat with AI product sourcing agent. Initially, the sourcing agent sometimes like recommend a catalog products, but if you're like, no, I'm gonna make like a fully custom, here's my design, here's my CAD thing, and we want a fully like custom mode, basically the product sourcing agent will prompt you to submit a fully custom project. And then you can use our portal to track all the different quotations or progress, which historically, if you don't have like a portal, it's just super messy, right? You'll have like 10 different versions of files and you don't really know when, like, what's the latest. And at a given point of time, you can't really find all the related information. So that's more using our portal to track all the key information. So anytime if you have multiple projects going on, you just log in and you can quickly retrieve all the information needed.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really excited for where
Yeah.
I think to wrap up, I have a couple of final questions. So I would say in terms of fundraising, there's obviously a lot of like funding channels. There's
Mhm.
loans, there's grants, there's friends and family round, there's institutional funding, there's accelerator and incubator. So what would be your recommendation for other, founders that are in the pre-seed stage or maybe only raise like friends and family and non-institutional capital?
I think first you want to know what kind of business you're building. Are you trying to build a venture business or more like a lifestyle business, right? Like, for example, if you're doing e-commerce brand or something that's not like venture scalable, I actually don't think venture capital is the way to go to get funding. You're much better off a grant, trying to get friends and family funding and angel money in and not get the VC pressure, right? For us, actually, I mean, I guess I'm a perfect example. I did a e-commerce brand in the past, right? Like when I was doing an e-commerce brand, I mainly did friends and family, like bootstrapping, taking on loans because I knew I wasn't going to build this brand into a venture backable business. And then when I started Wayo, because there's a platform element, there's this whole like tech AI component, I knew that Wayo is going to be a venture backable business and I would want to exit somewhat, either like is through going IPO or like selling or whatever. Like I knew that this is a route I'm going. It's not just going to be a profitable small business. So I was very clear at the beginning that for Wayo, we got to raise venture capital. I would say though, if you can get venture funding, obviously get it, and that your business is venture kind of business, if you can just get venture backing directly, that's the best, which is what we ended up doing. We could have, I guess, like gotten a friend and family first or go through an accelerator, but I was like, you know what, let me just try. And if we can just get a big check right away, that's obviously just save us so much headache, right? Whereas friends and family is like you have to talk to like 10 people to get very little money. I just felt like the ROI is not really that great. I just want to spend a couple weeks, get it done, and close around. So I think that's the most ideal. But if like the market's not great and you're like, actually, couldn't really secure VC funding, but you have friends and family option or accelerate option, I think that's not bad to try it out. But I do think if you have a really, really strong team and a venture backable idea, then you should be able to raise venture funding right away. There's so many pre-seed funds out there. If you pitch to like dozens and hundreds and you couldn't get it, maybe there's something wrong with the business model in the first place. I actually think the most dangerous thing for a startup founder is to not have real product market fit, but you have a little bit of traction, that it deceives you and you think there's a product market fit, and then you like get some small money but you can't get big money and just keep like burning your own time, right? So I actually think like taking a step back as a founder to really evaluate, is this something truly scalable in the venture sense? Am I actually going through the venture route before like doing all this? That's probably the most important thing. And then once you kind of made up your mind and figure it out, just like go and execute, and hopefully like there are investors who will believe in a vision and fund you. Yeah.
Speaking of traction, you mentioned you raised venture when you just had an idea. So, did you
Right.
use the agency traction as a form of traction, or there was really nothing, just vision?
We had some agency traction to present, but honestly, I don't think that much. I think when we more like, like Neo was like believing in a team and a vision more. But I do think having the agency traction was helpful because it proved that even without a product, there was already market fit. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a great point because there's a lot of agency owners that are pivoting their business into SaaS. And so,
right.
this could be a good reminder that actually that is also some traction is better than no traction.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely think the traction part probably helped us in like valuation and raising the round. But I still think like it's not the only thing, right? Like especially early stage. I think when VCs are looking, what they're really looking for is the market, right? What kind of like business you're building, and probably most importantly, the team, the people
Yeah.
behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I feel like there's so many stars need to align in the world of venture. It's really so fascinating. So
Yeah.
final ending question is what topic or which founder would you like to hear from next on this podcast?
Ooh, I guess like for me personally, I'm getting
I'm
very
very
interested
interested.
in founders that's like applying basically AI into traditional industries. So I don't have like anyone like particular in mind, but I think like generally it would be interesting to hear how founders are revolutionizing some of the more traditional industry. For us is like supply chain, right? Like overseas sourcing. Maybe there's some other industries where you're applying more cutting edge tech into it, and then really transforming the industry some way. Yeah, that's just what
Okay.
I would personally, I guess, be interested in.
Amazing. That's good homework for me. So if people need to find you, Julia, where can they go?
Yeah, LinkedIn probably easiest. My LinkedIn name is just julial.xu. L is my middle name. And then, yeah, so thewayo.com, that's our website. If you need merch, hopefully, actually we're launching very soon. By the time the podcast out should be live, you should be able
Yeah.
to go to our website and just order directly.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Julia.
Yeah, thank you so much.